I had a request for a video, which I have done before, but it's well worth revisiting, which is to do the kettlebell swing, classic exercise, some teaching points for this. This is one that I do see people do not particularly effectively from time to time, so just a couple of teaching points to consider on this. So what we do with this is you're going to take a wide enough stance, I like to say 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock angle for your feet if it was a clock face. Now, this is a hinge based motion, so it's a posterior chain exercise where you're working the glutes, hamstrings and lower back. So you've got to be able to put these muscles under load. So if you're squatting down when you're doing this, you're missing a trick, because you want to be going backwards but maintaining tightness through the core and then hinging forward. I'll show you with the kettlebell in a second. So mistake number one is often coming down, which is shortening the range of motion. It's almost becoming like part squat, part swing, which we don't want to do. Second thing that you can want to avoid with this generally is to use the arms too much. So if you're swinging like this, you're using a lot of your arms and shoulders, which isn't the target area for the exercise. So essentially what we want to do, we want to take a wide stance and then get into a stiff leg position, but just soften your knees. And then you want to build up some momentum with the kettlebell. But what I'm doing is I'm hinging whilst maintaining a nice neutral spine, so my lats are engaged, which is going to activate a little bit more of a stretch through the hamstrings. And then I'm snapping the hips forward, I'm letting my hips chase the weight forward, and almost like these rear chain muscles here are under stress, acting as shock absorbers against the force of the swing. So that's the kind of movement that we're after. You want to make sure that you engage these muscles so they contract, so when you drive the hips forward, is that force that generates the kettlebell. You don't want to break up the hips and come into hyperextension where you're not tightly engaged enough. That could potentially cause a risk of injury. So looking to hinge down to the point where the kettlebell is almost behind you, but you see my back is still flat and my lat muscles are engaged, so almost like I'm motioning like I want to snap the kettlebell in half to stay in this really tight position where I can feel a stretch all across the rear chain down into the hamstrings, and then just extend powerfully. It's an explosive dynamic exercise against the kettlebell, and that's how it's done. Give these a go.